Our R32 is broken, like properly broken. Now, let's rewind the clock and see how we got to this point. The R32 is looking the best it's probably looked in years, and we were about to take it to the biggest car show that Southeast Monty Golfs has done, and then it broke down. Now, I've been caning the life out of this thing over the past few weeks over the course of a few events, which you will see soon. So the fact it broke down when it did is a bit of a mystery, because all I did was I moved the car from the corner of the driveway into the middle so that I could wash it, and when I did, it started absolutely fine. Washed the car, didn't really touch the engine apart from just give it a wipe down, and then when I went to start it again, it had dropped a coil. The little OBD port was saying that I'd dropped a coil. It was showing us a misfire on one of the cylinders, so I replaced that coil, and then it moved to another cylinder, so I replaced that coil too at the cost of about £100, which I could have done without spending. And then I went to start it again, and all it did was just turn over and wouldn't start at all. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to then rectify the fault. I was chasing my tail really, not knowing where to go, so I didn't make the show in this car. Gutted. So now what we effectively have is a boat anchor in the middle of my drive, with me unable to get any other car on my driveway, which is a bit of a pain. So poor old Ben is coming round to hopefully help diagnose the fault.
Ben arrives to check VCDS for codes and parameters and making sure there's no loose connections, especially as on our way home from our last drive out I hit a massive bump in the road, which was so severe it knocked out the indicator connector from the steering column. After testing the coils using LEDs wired into them to simulate spark, we got the car started and it ran faultlessly, which was a short-lived success, as the next day, it decided it didn't want to do engine things anymore.
Seriously, car? To determine that we weren't just chasing our tails, we wanted to make sure we got the basics right first. So we have got spark, we've got compression, and we've got fuel, and I'll show you how we tested those. Now, we suspected it could be the fuel pump, which is actually the culprit of why our car is not starting. So we needed to test that was functional by bypassing the relay, which is this one here, relay 167. Now, to do that, you just need to put power across pin 30 and 87. It effectively works like a switch, because ordinarily that would have power, and then you'd put power on pin 85 and 860, and then that energizes the coil, pulls the switch down, and then you have a circuit, and that would then energize the fuel pump and it would prime. So by putting power across pins 30 and 87 using just a little jumper cable like this, we could then determine whether it worked. We did that by putting it into the fuse box down there, and the fuel pump primed.
First thing to check is that we actually have fuel being pumped, so I removed the fuel feed to the injector rail, disconnect coils and crank to see what 3 bars of fuel pressure looks like. Not a lot, as it seems. Now we know we're getting fuel to an extent at least, we can check for spark.
Remove the coil, connector, wiggle out the coil, sometimes a bit stiff, out it comes. Got the coil here, let's put a spark plug in it.
The wet spark plug is evidence of us having fuel at least.
So push the spark plug into the coil nice and firmly, and then put the body of the spark plug up against something which is earthed, like this alternator tension bracket. Remove the fuel pump relay, which is relay 19 in this car. Make sure you're not actually touching it, but ensure that this is still touching that earth point. Crank the engine and you should see a spark, which we did on this. So when you remove all of the coils one by one and the spark plugs, you'll notice that the engine does make a different noise, because when you turn it over, just the air whooshes out of the spark plug holes. So that shows that you do have compression if it sounds normal when you turn it over with them all connected.
As it appeared fuel pressure was low, a trip to Eurocar Parts for a gender neutral fuel filter was required.
Now we've established that the fuel pump is actually working, which is probably a good thing. However, we haven't got a lot of pressure, so that's not a good thing. So I'm going to do the easiest thing first to see if I can resolve that, and that is by changing the fuel filter, which is situated under the car, and I'm out in the rain because the car won't move and I can't get it in the garage, and also I can't jack it up, so I have about that much room to work with, which is going to be good fun. Wish me luck. Okay, so with the new fuel filter in, I'm going to crank the engine and see if we have more fuel pressure this time. So I'm going to do the same test again as before. Hopefully this should really fire out. Come on. Better, I suppose. I would say that was better, that was filling up a bit more. Let's try it one more time. Yeah, seems better, I think. Let's try it. Okay, and now we're going to try it again. Coils all connected. Come on, car. Nope, not enough fuel pressure. Well, that's annoying. It's another day, it's another test. This time, it's the last throw of the dice. I've got a new fuel pump, but first, I'm going to test the actual fuel pressure that we've still got on the car. The fuel pump should be a 3-bar pump, and when I've been doing the test with just the Coke bottle, it's just been like a light wee, like an old man when they're trying to go to the toilet. If that's 3-bar, that should be blasting out quite significantly. I changed the fuel filter thinking it might be that. That was basically the easiest thing to try. The next is the fuel pump, but first I'm actually going to check what the actual pressure is using this gauge. I've just fed it straight into the feed line, into the rail. So let's see what that does.
With a fuel pressure tester acquired and connected to the feed, it should provide a good indication whether we're getting the required fuel pressure.
Or 3.5.
I've just done the fuel pressure test and the pressure is reading at 3.5 bar, which is what the pump actually indicates it should be. The thing is though, I would have expected it to have gone almost straight to 3.5 bar rather than sort of creeping up like it did. So I'm really not quite sure what that means, whether it should do that. I'm sure someone in the comments will probably tell me if that is actually right on these. The thing is, when you turn the key, it doesn't tend to prime the pump, or if it does, it seems to be very random, although since I've had this fault, it's not been doing it at all. I can only think we've got an issue with the pump, so I'm going to change it and see what happens. It's my last throw of the dice, really. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I hate fuel, it stinks, but might as well have a go. It's where this bloody car needs to go in that.
In the carsy.
We give the area surrounding the fuel pump access hole a bit of a clean up to help prevent crap from falling into the tank.
That's the first time I've done a fuel pump, so there's going to be plenty of guesswork. I think I'll just have to work methodically, really.
Although I probably made that job look more complicated than it needed to be, it really is a simple case of removing the feed and return fuel line, loosening the securing ring with a hammer and flat-headed screwdriver, lift the fuel pump sender unit out of the way, a sharp twist counterclockwise on the fuel pump housing and wiggle it free, and then, as Mr. Haynes would say, refit is a reversal of removal.
I suppose, if nothing else, I needed to do this anyway because my fuel gauge has always been a bit pessimistic. It would tell you that you actually have about 3/4 of a tank when you fill it to the brim, and then it would go for, it would say you've got about 1/4 of a tank when you've actually got none, as I found out the hard way. So it's probably worth changing this anyway, but yeah, it actually wasn't too bad. I was expecting it to be a horrible job.
30-minute job?
Yeah.
If that,
Yeah.
really.
If I knew what I was doing, it would probably take more like 15. Because I'm a half-wit, it took a bit longer. Yeah, it was actually not as bad as I was expecting. It just smells.
Weeing everywhere.
Bright and early the next morning, to the wonderful sound of roadworks, I tried to start the engine with the newly fitted fuel pump. With the car failing to start again, I took heed of some advice and prepared to change the crank sensor. When these start failing, they don't always show on VCDS, so definitely seems a viable option. Ben has donated me a spare 1.8 turbo one, which we think should work. We need to remove the front bumper, and as our driveway is sloped, it is 100% probable death if you jack up the car. So a bit of ingenuity required to make it 100% super safe.
Peekaboo, where are you? There you are. Oh, focus. There's a little joker. And if you trace the wire, it comes from it. Where's it gone? Yeah, there. It goes up there. And then into that connector there. So I don't think that's too bad. Should be able to unclip that. And that should be enough length. I reckon even if you went for the 250 mil, surely. I'll just have to loop it around the front of the oil filter if necessary, I reckon.
I've managed to remove the crank sensor which was on the car. Can't guarantee whether it's actually faulty or not, but we're kind of clutching at straws now. And here is a spare which has been obtained. Thank you, Ben, again. Now this was from a 1.8 turbo, a 20 valve turbo, and it should do exactly the same. It's the same part number along this bit here. However, the lead is a little bit shorter, so that's going to be interesting, seeing if I can get that to actually route and connect up. Let's have a go.
Okay, so this is our last throw of the dice really. I've just changed the crank sensor for a 1.8 turbo one, which was just a spare kicking about in Ben's garage. Now I'm going to give it a go, and let's see what happens. This is just... it's the throttle body's going. Ah, that's so annoying. Another day, another new part. This time I've got a 3.2 litre crank sensor, one actually for this car, whereas the one that I fitted the other day was a 1.8 turbo one from a known good car. But I think I can actually fit this without having to jack the car up on my sloped driveway, which was a bit, yeah, let's just say wasn't the safest way to do things, but it got the job done. But I think I can do this without having to take the bumper off. Now with the bumper on the car, we look right through there, you can just about see the crank sensor. There it is. So I reckon I can get my Allen key attached to the end of my extendable socket, and that should be enough reach to get in there and do it whilst the car is on the ground. And that will be a bit of a result.
This is why you can never have enough tools in your garage.
There you go. It's not stupid if it works. Here's the 1.8 20 valve turbo one that came out of the car as the test one, which didn't work. And here is the 3.2 VR6 one. Now, the only difference that we can see is the last letter on the part number is different, and it's just got a longer lead. So let's try that one, see if that fits and see if it works.
Can't find the hole. Need some hair around it.
So I've just fitted the crank sensor and I've plugged it in. That went surprisingly smoothly with the front end still all in one piece and not jacked up precariously on the slope driveway. So we're going to have a go at turning it on. I don't think it's actually going to make any difference, but it just needed to be checked and ruled out. Lovely Crocs.
Come on.
Bloody hell.
And it's been stood for a number of days.
Yeah, so any fuel which was in it would have. Next, the cavalry arrived in the shape of Ben and Phil with some magic spray, aka carb cleaner.
Ready? Yeah.
The fact the engine was running with carb cleaner indicated we had a fuel delivery issue, so we needed to check the injector's functionality. We removed the inlet manifold and the injector rail to be able to remove the injectors. With them removed, a clean piece of card can be used to determine spray pattern. We are looking for equal atomization across all 6. As a bonus, it makes for some epic shots. Until the camera fell over. As you can see, the injectors are spraying in a uniform pattern, which is even clearer on these ASMR style slow-mo shots.
Once again, the car is baffling us. Now, we thought that it might be an injector fault because when we cranked the car with the fuel pump relay in, it wouldn't start. As soon as you take the fuel pump relay out, with the residual fuel which is sat in the spark plug chamber, it would fire up for a second or so and then cut out. Then if you sprayed carb cleaner into the throttle body with the fuel pump relay removed, it would fire up as the carb cleaner is being sprayed. But then as soon as you then put the fuel pump relay in and then sprayed with the carb cleaner, it wouldn't do anything, it would just crank. So that was suggesting that there was a problem possibly with the injectors. So, yep, injectors were removed. We tested them using a piece of card just to make sure they were all spraying equally really, and they all seem to be. So this thing continues to baffle us now. Yeah, it's a mystery. Right, now we have seen that the injectors have actually got good atomization across all 6. So we're now going to do a different test, which is a bit backyard mechanic, but yeah, it could involve losing my eyebrows because I'm going to put the injectors back in and I'm going to unplug 5 of them, leaving 1 still connected, and then fire it up with the fuel pump on and the spark plug still all working as they should, and we should get a cough at least. But because we've got an open intake on the inlet there, yeah, that could be interesting because you might see a bit of a flame or something coming out of there. And then once that is done, we'll just move on to the next one, disconnect that injector, leaving just that one on, and do the same test again with the next coil and so on. Let's see what happens. Right, so that is the injectors put back in the rail and back into the head basically. So we've got injector number 1 now connected by the electrics, and we've got coil 1 and the spark plug in there as well. Yep. Yep. Interesting. So that was trying to cough. Let's try with injector number 2. 1 cylinder was working, so now I'm going to disconnect that one and plug in cylinder number 2, and the same with the coil and spark plug as well, and see what we get there. if we get a cough on all 6 cylinders, then you then have the question as to why is it then not working when you put the inlet manifold on and the throttle body on and everything like that. Well, that's encouraging, I'd say. Let's try it. Nothing in that one. Interesting. Now that didn't fire up or make any attempt to cough, so I've replaced the coil back with the one that was in cylinder 1 because we knew that one did try and cough. Let's try again.
Ready?
Yep. No cough that time.
The same result for cylinders 3, 4, 5 and 6, not a cough.
Okay, right, so we're just trying that first one again, number 1, with the first coil with it plugged in. Let's see what happens. It should cough like it did before.
Ready?
Yep. What? So we are clutching at straws, really. If you have seen one of our previous videos, you'll know that we had a water leak. Some of the water was actually going on the fuse box. That's not going to be good for it. They're not waterproof, so as a matter of course, I'm going to change the fuse box. I'm going to be very methodical. I'm going to remove every connector one by one from there into there, just one at a time. Same with the relays, so that I don't get it wrong. And then we're going to try it again. Even though the engine is disassembled at the moment, we can do the same test as before, where we'll just see if it will do a cough with the inlet manifold off and go from there. If it's not that, then I do worry that it's something quite terminal.
Unbeknown to me, the connectors only go into the fuse box one way, so I needn't have worried about mixing them up.
This one came out of the old fuse box. That looks pretty well corroded.
Water's definitely got in there, isn't it?
I do have a spare 18 relay from the 16 valve. As you can see, we've got a little bit of corrosion which has gone on there, so can't guarantee that that's actually caused the problem, but it's certainly not going to be helping. So I think it's probably a good job we are actually changing this over, because you just don't know what condition this is in. This is just on the outside, what's going on the inside as well. I mean, we were always getting power by the looks of things, but we just don't know if there's signal voltage or something like that which is just dropping out, which is meaning it doesn't start. Yeah, worth changing anyway. Right, we've got the bird's nest back in. So we're going to try and just get it to cough like we did last time. So we've got one coil, one coil, one injector plugged in, the rest are unplugged. Let's see if it will cough. Yep, all ready. Let's go. Yep. Oh! Yes! Okay, good. That is good. Okay, cylinder 2, let's try it. Let's go. Oh! Whoa! Now we think that the cause of this was perhaps this relay 18, as it's labelled as, which goes in 0.4 on the fuse box. So if you look in here, those contact points are actually quite corroded, and this relay from here does not look particularly good. And this is called an X contact relay, which when you look into it, it initiates power when ignition is on, but not when cranking. So we're thinking that this may have been part of the culprit as to what was going on. It was not causing any fault codes or anything like that. So let's put it all back together and see if we can get it to fire up. So it's a bit of a mess. It's another day. It's a very hot day. We're working on the car again. This time we're just going to put it back together and see if we can get it to work.
Top tip, old children's divider plate for when they're weaning. Makes for a great bolt divider tray.
Thanks. So yeah, if anyone picks up on it, all that oil down there is because of this breather pipe here where it's been disconnected. It's just started weeping out.
Stripped down to there.
I don't know what the thoughts are on having an oil catch can on these. What's people's thoughts? Is it actually beneficial? Because I don't think it smokes too much or anything. You don't get much congealed oil or anything. So yeah, I'd be interested to know what people think, whether it's a worthwhile mod. Right, I think everything is reconnected. I've not touched the fuse box since we got it to cough the other day. I've reconnected all of the electrical parts. The spark plug and coils are in, the injectors are in, inlet manifold is in, which was not very fun once we got the radiator in place. Probably should have taken that out, would have been easier, but it was just proving a bit of a faff. MAF is on. Yes, I've got some exposed wiring, I've tidied that up, but I just need to make sure it works. So let's see. Again.
Oh, I'm so nervous. Is it out of gear, yeah?
Oh my god. Let's try it again. Come on.
Yes! Well, that is a start.
Yes. Yes. It didn't sound great, but that's more than it's done in
Weeks and weeks and weeks.
It is. Let's get to the bottom of that, but I will class that as a win.
Okay, so fire up round 2.
Ready?
Yeah. Hooray!
Our hope quickly turned to despair once again.
Keep going. Round 3. Code's cleared.
But
that's not encouraging, is it?
No.
Seriously.
Now, as you saw, we didn't get this thing to continue to start. I'm not sure what's going on with it, so we think that the ECU might be playing up. So we've got the old one in here. We've managed to source a replacement. It's a second-hand unit, therefore it's not been deimmobilised, and it hasn't got the map which this one has got on it. But what we need to do is just use this one. Hopefully, if we plug it in, it should, in theory, fire up for a couple of seconds and run, and then it should cut out once the immobiliser cuts in. Now, if it does that, then we know that the ECU is at fault, and then we can just get this one mapped as and when we need to. Right, let's see if this fires up. I'm not optimistic after all the other things that we've done on this car. Let's see what this does. Doesn't sound good, does it? Yeah. So the ECU is not the problem. Excellent. Now what? Now, as we weren't able to get the car running for a prolonged period of time, we are now going to have to take it to Ben's because he's the only one who might know how to get this thing going with its unique wiring setup and everything like that.
A massive shout out to Neil for providing the low loader and taking the stricken car down to Ben's house.
So less than 2 hours after having dropped the car off at Ben's, I get a phone call to say that it starts. So yeah, what happened?
You've got some gremlins. You've got your conversion loom. So yeah, good deal, and it's lasted a few years. But where the OEM looms will last for 20, 30 years, conversion stuff sometimes it lasts 1 year, 1 month, 10 years, and some of the wires in the back of the fuse box probably just need replacing.
So we'll do that. We'll do that.
Yes, your wiring loom from ECU to engine, looks mostly factory, just rewrapped.
Yeah.
But this the stuff that goes to the fuse box and is spliced into the CE2 needs updated.
So my fuse box fix was like a temporary fix, obviously where we've got broken connections and stuff in there, where you just got wires which aren't connected properly.
Yeah, and you say it went over a big bump on the road where it first started going wrong, and I think something has just worked its way loose, whether it's in a crimp, whether it's in a solder joint wrapped in tape, it's fine.
Yeah.
That stuff's all fine for, like most people don't even keep their converted car that long, do they?
No,
it's like, I've done a 20 valve conversion, yeah, great, I've done this, and a drag strip, and then I sell it.
Yeah.
Maybe I've owned it for 2 years.
I'm a bit sentimental, and I keep my cars for too long, probably. I mean, we've had this since 2009. We've had it converted for 8 years, so but
it's been used for all sorts.
It has.
So yeah, just update that. I think that'll be all right.
Shall we hear it fire up?
Try it
Proof
again.
in the pudding. We can actually get it to work, and it just wasn't a fluke. I don't think it was. Whee! That sweet sound. Now I've just got to put it back together, and I'm a happy bunny again. Thanks very much, Ben. See you next time on Southeast Mark II Golfs.